Hi, my name's David Weinberg. You're watching Spotlight on Guilford, and our guests today are Ella Stanley. She's the founder of the Big Sleep Out, and you're going to be telling us what that is in a moment. And Megan Scanlon, the executive director of Women and Family Life Center.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
So Ella, what's the Big Sleep Out?
So the Big Sleep Out started because I participated in an event through Columbus House at my church called Abraham's Tent. And during this event, 12 men who are homeless stayed at our church for a week, and we fed them meals. They stayed there overnight. My job was to volunteer and socialize with the men to make them feel more at home. And going into that experience, like any person, I think I had a lot of stereotypes in my head, even fears of what these men would be like, because they were people who are homeless, and I had never really interacted with someone who was homeless before. And through my experience at Abraham's Tent, I was able to really have my eyes opened to how people who are homeless were mostly people who are not that different from me, who just happened to be homeless. And so I wanted to take that experience and my learning and really bring that to the entire community. And through the Big Sleep Out, people can come and not only sleep out on the green, but they can learn more about homelessness through workshops and cool presentations. And Columbus House, who does so much work in homelessness, they have experts who are talking about some different areas that relate to the cause, and we have a lot of other great presenters, and there's a meal similar to a person going to Columbus House might have. So through all these opportunities, people are really just learning more through the Big Sleep Out event.
Okay, so you were, now what church was this at?
It began at St. George Church, presenting to the council there, but it's actually a joint effort of 3 churches around the green, the Congregational, Episcopal, and St. George Church.
So all 3 of the churches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and presentations take place in the different faith communities.
Okay, so people are going to spend the night on the green. Is that what happens?
That is one of the options. Some people just come for the presentations and activities, and that's completely fine too. But yes, most people do stay through the night in the end.
Okay, so there's going to be presentations, and where are these presentations going to be?
Taking place in the different churches, in the church hall, St. George Church Hall is where we have the meal, and then some of them will be outside on the green or just on lawns near the churches.
And what are the presentations going to be like?
Well, I guess I'll just talk about a few from last year and some new ones coming up.
And you did this last year?
Yes, this is our 2nd year, and we had a great successful year. Some from last year, we had a speaker panel of a few people who had direct either relationships with or were homeless themselves, and they talked about their story and really just answered questions for people and illuminated the subject, shared their own personal experiences. And then another cool activity was the Big Sleep Out quilt, where the participants made a quilt square with their takeaway from the event, some words or an image of something they did or learned. And then we put all of the squares together into a big quilt, which actually travels around town currently to places such as the library or the savings bank or the rec center, even the Guilford Fair, which was pretty cool. And then one more new one we're doing this year, which is a little bit more hands-on as well, is a plarn workshop that's a cross between yarn and plastic. So you take old used plastic bags and we make them into yarn, and then people can actually learn to crochet very simply reusable mats, which can then be donated to people who are homeless, and they can sleep on them as opposed to cardboard.
So really a lot of useful activities. So why should people in Guilford care about homelessness?
Well, for one thing, even though in our town there's not tons of people in Guilford who are homeless, so we may not see it in our town, but if you just go to, say, New Haven or really any other city people travel to, you see it everywhere, and it's a very large problem. And I think that the fact that we don't see homelessness every day in Guilford makes us not really understand the problem completely, and like I said, we have stereotypes and we have fears of the problem. So.
Well, I know from watching you on YouTube that there are a few homeless people here in Guilford. So why don't we see them?
Well, a lot of the time, if there's just 2 or 3 people, they're not physically there, lying on the ground, sleeping out at night in front of you. They find places that are maybe away from it, and if you see someone even just walking down the street that looks homeless, you might not even assume they're from Guilford. They might just be coming here from the city. So a lot of the time it's just not as, it doesn't really impress upon people the issue as much as it would if it was right in front of you, surrounding you all the time.
So, and you might not know that somebody was homeless just to see them. Now, what year are you in? You're at Guilford High School?
Junior at Guilford High School, yes.
So I have to tell you how extraordinary it is that you've been able to accomplish all of this.
Thank you so much.
And so it was going, what got you interested in this?
Well, as I said, I participated in that activity, and so that really wanted me to, that really made me want to bring this to the community, but I really love service. It's always been something that's part of my life from when I was little, just going to Columbus House and also participating in youth service organizations. So this gave me a way to take an idea on something that was important to me and see my ideas and my efforts really pay off, which I think has been powerful and just exciting to me in general.
So are there other students involved in this?
Yes, so we have a few other youth leaders, and then we have just a general task force from the high school which meets weekly in the mornings to do things like hang posters or go over designs for posters or flyers or brainstorm participation groups that we can go to come to the event.
And so how many volunteers are there in the student group?
In the student group, we have maybe about 10 students in that task force group, yeah.
And are these people, are they new or were they involved last year?
The task force is a new element this year slightly, but there have been a few who ran certain elements of the Sleep Out last year who have now joined the task force. So some new and then some from last year.
So if people come to the Big Sleep Out, and so, well, tell me, where did the name come from for the Big Sleep
Out? Well, there have actually been other programs similar to our event. Some are called the Great Sleep Out, some are called the Big Sleep Out. The idea of sleeping out obviously is just because you're going to be outside, but our event differs in the fact that we have these presentations and activities surrounding the actual sleeping out. So you're not just going for a night to experience the cold, you're doing the educational and the learning side of it too, which also allows for people of many ages to participate, because if you have someone who's older or someone who's really young, they may not want to sleep out on the green, but they can still take the learning aspect.
So what do you want people to come away with when they wake up the following morning? What do you want them to know?
Well, I guess I want them to see this issue in a new light. And when I started interacting with people who are homeless, I just saw how amazing it was that they had talents, they had families similar to I had, they had even kids maybe, or they had hopes and dreams. And so I just really want people to, when they see someone who's homeless, not just be afraid and see the homelessness, but I want them to see the person behind that homelessness.
So I did a little research before you guys came, and I say right now as we're sitting here today in Connecticut, there are about 4,000 people who are homeless. And as you say, so many of them, this is information from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they say about 500, actually more than 500 of those people will have families. And about 200 of them are veterans, and about 200 of them are young people between the ages of 18 and 24. And this is really for either of you. So who are these people? What gets them homeless?
Well, there's actually many different dimensions, and I've actually talked about this with some people who work in the helping people who are homeless. Some families may not be physically living on the streets, but they are, say, couch surfing. So they're living with family or relatives or friends, going night to night to different houses because they don't have anywhere to stay. So I have even learned about stories of people who were kids living in that situation, and not only till they grew up did they look back and realize, we were homeless, we didn't have anywhere to go. And then, of course, there's also the dimension of people who are just sleeping on the streets. And in that case, a lot of factors can go into that. They might have mental health issues, which are a big problem, especially veterans returning from war. They can have a lot of issues. And sometimes traumatic events in their life. I know some men from Columbus House have lost children, have lost wives or husbands, and that really just throws them down a very tough path.
Yeah, and as Ella said, the 4,000 those are documented. So then there's, according to HUD, there's a certain standard for homelessness. So you have to be without housing for a certain number of days, and you have to meet certain criteria to be documented as homeless. So there's also a population that is homeless that's not documented, like the couch surfing or somebody living in their car. The way that the state and federal government define homelessness don't necessarily define those individuals as homeless. So you're dealing with the 4,000 documented, but then you have families that are, transient essentially, and that's a lot of the population that Women and Family Life Center works with are families on the shoreline, women and families in particular, that are trying to access services and shelter, and often trying to keep their homes. And I think one of the things that has come out of this for us and for Ella is that, and a great workshop that happened last year was the family budget. So they did, last year one of the workshops was a budget, and it was a simulation of your car breaks down, or you have one crisis in your family, and it just completely depletes your ability to sustain your household, and then you find yourself in the situation where you can't afford your rent, and you essentially end up homeless, not because of anything you necessarily did, but just because of the fact that, we have a lot of families that are working poor, and if one catastrophic thing happens in their household or in their family, a lot of times that causes them to kind of to cycle into that homelessness system.
So you're saying that many of us in our families were really only one catastrophe away from being homeless.
Yeah, I think that was a great lesson that we learned through one of the workshops last go around, last sleep out. And that's something that we deal with at Women and Family Life every day. So we have families coming to us, looking for rental assistance, looking for assistance for a car repair or something like that. Those things can happen, and you just didn't plan for it, and you just kind of find yourself in a situation where you can't catch up.
So after I go to the big sleep out, and if I meet someone who looks homeless on the street, how should I behave? How should I respond to them? Or should I respond to them?
Well, I think just in general treating them with more respect and being more conscious. And it may not even just be walking by in the street and having to do something right then and there, but maybe other ways, volunteering at Columbus House or giving assistance, and just being more compassionate, sharing the idea with other people, donating, and that sort of thing.
Well, one thing that I learned in looking through the materials that you sent is that people feel like they're not human when they're homeless, that they've stopped being people. So what can I do different?
I think just really treating them as if they are a person. And as I was saying before, a big idea that we say is it's not a homeless person, but it's a person who is homeless. So separating their state with their actual humanity that they still are. And a lot of the time when I talk to people who are homeless, say at Abraham's Tent, they just love to be treated normally, not to talk to them as if they need help or, oh, what's wrong. Just let them open up and share what they need to share, but just talk to them like a normal person and make them feel comfortable.
So not a homeless person, but a person who is homeless. So I know that you have to leave. Before you do, though, can you talk a little bit about Columbus House?
Sure, yeah. So Columbus House is a big organization, and they're centered in New Haven, of course. They have so many different branches that they work. They have overflow shelters for people who literally would otherwise be sleeping on the cold streets at night. They have shelters for transitional housing where they're trying to get people to live there and then work towards getting their own place. They have programs such as Abraham's Tent, who are people right on the cusp of getting their own house, finding jobs. They have caseworkers who are working with people and just bettering their situation. They have so many programs, too, for people like us to get involved, to get closer towards the issue. And they also just do tons of publicity for the actual cause of homelessness through events and organizations so that we can become more aware.
Well, Ella, it's amazing that you're doing this. I think it's very important for people in Guilford to be able to get this greatest awareness. And we're going to take a short break so that you can leave. I know you're busy. And thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and talk to Megan a little bit more about homelessness and Guilford. Hi, welcome back. This is Spotlight on Guilford. I'm David Weinberg. I'm here with Megan Scanlon, and we're talking about the Big Sleep Out, which is an awareness program about homelessness. It's going to take place on the Guilford Green April 27th, which is a Saturday.
Yep.
You can come out, you can participate in workshops,
Mm-hmm.
you can spend the night if you like, up to you, and get a new perspective on what homelessness means in Guilford. So Megan, how did the Women and Family Life Center get involved in this project?
Yeah, so we actually heard about the project last year. I heard about it through just different networks, and at the time I was not the executive director, I was just a volunteer, and I had brought it as a suggestion for Women and Family Life to get involved because access to housing and affordable housing is one of the biggest issues that we see impacting women and families on the shoreline. So it aligned a lot with the work that we're doing, with where we want to be in terms of our own advocacy, but then also to see Ella, I know she had said she's a junior, so she started this as a sophomore. I don't know what you were doing sophomore year of your high school career, but I was certainly not organizing homelessness awareness. So we also just wanted to support a young woman in the community that was doing something really significant. So that's how we initially got involved. I slept out. My husband and I slept out, and that is an incredible experience. So I encourage others to definitely try to sleep out if you can. But there's other programs
And
as well.
is your husband someone we should know?
He's Sean Scanlon. So he is the state representative and represents Guilford and Brantford. I have to say, it was my idea to sleep out. I don't know that he loved the experience. But we did it, and it was very eye-opening just in terms of the whole experience, but then also the programs that went with it. You went to these different programs, and you actually had to earn food stamps for each program. So you got to the end, if you made it to all the programs, you had a certain number of stamps. And then you had to make choices, similar to anybody in a shelter would make. So, there was a choice. I didn't have enough stamps for hot chocolate and a cardboard tent to keep myself, it was raining at the time, so to keep myself from getting wet. I chose hot chocolate over the tent, so that was my choice. So then I was sleeping out in the rain. But those are real choices that individuals have to make. So it was a great simulation of the experience that you would go through, or that an individual would go through in that situation. To say, okay, today I'm going to choose this, tomorrow I'm going to choose that, kind of thing.
So part of the goal of the Big Sleep Out is to give people who volunteer for it the opportunity to see what it's like to be living out on the street.
Yeah, I think the greatest thing that Ella has brought to this program is the humanity of it. As you're going through some of the programs and you're going through some of the simulations that she's built in, you really get a sense of what it feels like to have to be in a situation to make a certain decision, and how that is different for every individual, right? Like, I'm sure there's smarter people that didn't choose the hot chocolate, and that chose the cardboard tent, and vice versa. And you come together as a community through it. So I think it was really important. The education piece tied with the humanity piece really changes your perspective on the issue of homelessness and affordable housing on the shoreline.
So it's not academic.
There is some academic to it, but I think the strength is in the simulations, is in really bringing people together to experience things firsthand, instead of just cerebrally.
So what are some of the workshops that are going to be taking place there?
So this year, there's an exciting new workshop that I think anybody that wants to get involved in the issue, it's a really easy way. There's going to be an advocacy workshop that Women in Family Life and Columbus House are going to partner on to basically teach people how to advocate for access to homelessness services and access to affordable housing. The governor actually recently had cut the bonding money for any affordable housing units to be built moving forward, and that significantly impacts the work that Columbus House can do in the future and the work that we can do in the future, as well as other organizations around the state. So we're going to be teaching people basically the mechanics of how to advocate for issues that you care about. So that's a really easy entry into making a difference. Obviously, Ella is doing it on a bigger scale for Guilford and the whole shoreline, but one person can make a difference just by writing a postcard or sending an email to their representative to share what they care about and what bills they want them to support. And the more you do that, the more you have a movement, you can really move and make a difference in terms of housing and homelessness.
And are there bills right now that people should be supporting?
Yeah, so there's a whole housing committee at the state capitol that has a whole host of bills this year. We actually have some town issues around this too, so it is very local to Guilford. We have an affordable housing task force that was put into place several years ago that just came out with some plans for affordable housing in Guilford. I believe they just got some bids back, and then they'll be having a public meeting about that before it moves forward. So there's opportunities locally to get involved around that issue to prevent some of the homelessness that we've seen in the past, and then there's opportunities at the state level. So we'll be going over both of those. And then certainly at the federal level, HUD is actually really focused on eliminating homelessness. So their focus has really been to push states to do the same through their work.
Now, Ella talked a little bit about Columbus House, but maybe you can say a little bit more.
Yeah, so the beauty of Columbus House for us is we work with women and families primarily, but we partner with Columbus House in many ways. We refer.
And they're in New Haven.
They're based in New Haven, but they have services that really touch a lot of the shoreline. So they have services for individuals mostly, and they actually range from about Milford all the way up to Madison, I think is their catchment area. So they do take care of Greater New Haven, and they focus mostly on individuals. But they provide, like Ella said, they provide initial emergency shelter. They have a transitional program, which is very important for individuals and families that are trying to get themselves back on their own feet. And then they have long-term case management, even while they're in transitional housing, case management to make sure that you can make that transition from transitional to permanent housing. One of the biggest challenges that we have in the state, no matter how great Columbus House is, or any of the other organizations, is we have a shortage of affordable housing. So that's our big issue. So homelessness and affordable housing kind of go together in a sense. So the shoreline, I believe Guilford has 2% affordable housing, and I think Branford is a little bit behind in terms of affordable housing. And that means affordable for those geographic regions, and that's what we really need to get to long term to be able to house families or house individuals in units that they can afford to live. So once they re-enter the workforce, once they're able to get to that place, to be able to be stable is a big piece of it. So Columbus House works with you from the moment you enter the shelter through that whole process to permanent housing.
Now, I saw in some of the materials I was looking at to get ready for this interview, communities of care.
Yeah.
And in particular, I saw where in Milford they had a whole community of police and caseworkers,
Yeah.
government.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that here in Guilford, or is...
So generally, I would say locally, each town is different on the shoreline. So Guilford, I think, has a little bit better system than maybe some of our other surrounding towns. But what those communities of care are trying to get at is to have a model that everybody really works with and through for each town. And the United Way operates the CAN system, and that's how an individual first enters any kind of housing system or housing shelters. They get assessed through the CAN system, and then other towns like Milford have that wraparound communities of care. So we don't necessarily have that same model here, but we do have a lot of great partnerships within the town government and other nonprofits to try to minimize that issue.
So do people come to your door homeless or on the brink of homelessness?
Yeah, they quite often, pretty much every day. I mean, we have individuals, especially women, tend to be in a position where they're earning less. They're a little bit more vulnerable if a crisis happens in their household to becoming homeless over men, sometimes just statistically based on the fact that they either make less or they're usually the main person taking care of either elderly parents or children or both. So we see that every day. So we see some individuals that come in that are living in their car or living on a friend's couch, looking for housing. I mean, most of the work that we do, our social worker, say 30% of her time is spent trying to find housing solutions for people. So it's a huge issue on the shoreline that we don't always talk about, or we don't realize that our neighbors are dealing with some of these things. But like we said earlier, it's usually one catastrophe that sort of spirals out of control that lands them at our door, and then
And that's almost every day.
Yeah, and we serve individuals. We serve Guilford mostly, but we serve individuals from East Haven all the way to East Lyme. So we have individuals coming to us from the greater shoreline with similar issues, whether it be a lot of times there's mental health issues involved, or there might be domestic violence issues involved for some of the people that we're serving. But ultimately, a lot of the people that are coming to us are looking for housing solutions and are often don't want to leave the shoreline, which I can understand. So that's our biggest challenge.
So I come to your door and I'm homeless, or maybe I'm living in my car,
Yep.
or on a friend's couch. And so I see the social worker there.
Yeah, so you'd sit down one-on-one with our social worker. She'd go through, basically get sort of like your whole history or whatever you're willing to share of it. And she comes up with an action plan with you. And part of that action plan, more often than not, is accessing some of the programs that we offer directly, but then referring to a place like Columbus House or New Reach or the food pantry. And really her job is, and what we do is we try to basically combine all the services that the individual needs into an action plan, and we'll work with them through the whole process. So once they get connected to Columbus House, we're still checking in to make sure that they actually made that connection and that they're actually moving forward in that direction, if that's the direction that they're taking. Or, if we've recently been able to create some creative roommate situations for some individuals where individuals are looking for a roommate and then somebody else needs housing, so we'll try to make those connections. So we are really a resource center and a hub for individuals that are dealing with a lot of different issues at once, and usually they kind of come to a head, and individuals need to deal with them, and they're sort of in a really immediate crisis situation.
So I'm going to come to you. You're going to help me find a place to stay, hopefully somewhere on the shoreline.
Ideally, if we can. That is really difficult for us to do, but we try our best to keep you on the shoreline if that's where you want to be.
And then you're going to try to help make sure that I'm eating and my family's eating?
Yeah, so we'll help you with all the basic necessities. We'll make sure that you are accessing, whatever your family needs, whether it's food, whether it's energy assistance money, and we work with the social service agencies if that makes sense for that individual. We have some great relationships. So we really try to partner and help them navigate the situation in a really holistic way. So taking into account everything that's going on.
So am I going to be coming back to see you in Guilford, or are you going to be staying in touch, or is it different for each?
So it's different for each person. Some people have been with us for a whole year. Some people are with us a couple months, and some people are a few days, depending on their needs. But we'll help you no matter what that need level is. So some people are going to require more intensive one-on-one collaboration, and then some people aren't, just based on whatever they come in with. But we don't have any restrictions on income or location like some other agencies. We don't have any state or federal money. So we get to kind of take anybody that walks through our door, which we see as a great advantage now, especially because we have a lot of families that are considered the working poor and are not qualifying for state or federal aid. But we're able to come up with really creative community collaborations with the churches and other private groups to help them out.
And where is your door?
It's on Fair Street. It's 96 Fair Street. We're right on the corner. We're right on a bus line, and we're there every day, 9 to 5:30.
So you provide, obviously you're dealing with homelessness every day, but there's a lot of other activity at your center as well.
Yes, yeah. So we are, that's one of the issues that we tackle daily, but the other issues that we try to wrap around for individuals is financial education, legal education. A lot of times people are coming in with situations where, like I said, there might be a financial issue, so they'll work one-on-one with a financial coach to make a budget, to solve whatever their financial challenge is, and to be able to move past it. So what we're really trying to get at is that you come in, we create support services for you, and that you're really able to sustain that moving forward. That's our goal. And whether it's with us or Columbus House or somebody else, we just want to make sure that you're getting the right services that you need.
Now, do you find that people who have maybe lived in Guilford for a long time, and a lot of people, are they resistant to coming to your door?
I think that there is a little bit of a, I guess, I don't want my neighbors to know that I'm coming here. And we really do try to respect everybody's confidentiality, and we certainly don't share that information. But yeah, I think some people wind up coming to us that maybe they didn't necessarily think they were ever going to be in the situation, and now they are, and just even dealing with that, and what that stigma might be on the shoreline is tough for people. But we try to work through that with them and rebuild their confidence. That's one of our goals, is to rebuild their sense of community and confidence, and just for them to know that they don't have to be ashamed of their story. It's eventually going to inspire somebody else, who's going through something similar. And there's, I think, way more people, even you and I, I'm sure, that have had challenges in our lives that we've been able to overcome because we've had great support systems. And that's what we are. We're there for you to be a support system to you when you've got nowhere else to go.
And so what are some of the other challenges that Women and Family Life Center helps with?
Yeah, so our four main goals are to help women to become free from violence and harassment. So we have a lot of women that come to us that are dealing with an abusive relationship or trying to get out of one, whether it be financially abusive, emotionally, physically. So we really try to work with that population as much as we can, and we partner with BH Care and New Horizons to provide services for that. We work to get women housing, obviously. We work to educate them on what their financial means are. We try to help them get jobs if they are re-entering the workforce, or if they're looking to get a job that's higher paying. We work with organizations similar to us to be able to do that. And then we have some social programs for women. So we have a monthly gathering that's open to any of our participants, just for them to come and sort of forget about the issues that they're dealing with, and just have a good time and socialize with people that are going through some similar challenges. So we've done a paint night. We entered a scarecrow on the green, which was interesting and fun. And women have really come at the end of those, they've really given us great feedback. They've formed friendships, and they also just kind of feel like it's the one thing they're doing for themselves where they're not worried about their problem. So we do value that as well. So we value that community confidence building that a lot of women and families, I think, struggle with when they have a challenge that changes the trajectory of their life. So.
And you don't have to be in crisis to come to your
You
work.
don't. You don't have to be in crisis. You can simply just want to, meet and talk to somebody. I mean, we've had plenty of women and families come in just to kind of meet and talk to somebody. Plenty of people that volunteer. So we're always looking for more volunteers. And then we have some wellness programs too that individuals take advantage of. So you certainly don't have to be. But more often than not, it's interesting. We had one woman come in last week just looking to use our computer, and then she wound up sort of sharing with us some challenges that she was going through that she didn't even realize until she was sitting there. Yeah. So, but no, you don't have to be.
So, are you going to be camping out on the green again?
Yeah, so I will be on the green. I'm helping Ella with running some of the programs. So I'll be helping with the advocacy program and just some of the logistics around the dinner. So I will be there. I know she's got a really great group of volunteers from Columbus House, Women and Family Life Center, a lot of the high school groups. I know the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are also going to be involved, and then obviously the St. George's Men's Club. They're a huge help. They do a lot of help with the cooking for the meal that Ella had referenced, and then they do the patrols around the green at night.
And that's going to be Saturday,
April 27th.
April 27th.
Yep.
You can Google Big Sleep Out Guilford.
Yes. Yep, there's a website, and you don't have to stay for the whole thing. So be really clear. Like if you can't sleep out, that's okay. Come for some of the programs. They're really educational and interactive.
You can spend your stamps on hot chocolate
You
and not
can
worry about
yes.
the cardboard tent.
Yeah, you can spend your stamps on hot chocolate and food, and you don't have to worry about the cardboard tent. Hopefully, it doesn't rain this year, but yeah.
Okay, well, Megan, thanks so much for supporting the Big Sleep Out. Thanks for joining us to tell people about it.
Thanks for having me, and we're really happy. We will continue to support Ella for as long as she does the program.
Well, great. Again, Big Sleep Out. Bring your sleeping bag. People can bring sleeping bags.
You can bring a
right?
sleeping bag, and you can bring something to lay on, like a yoga mat or some kind of mat.
You don't have to knit one.
You don't have to knit one now.
Okay, so Big Sleep Out, Saturday, April 27th, on the green. Stay the night if you want. If not, come participate in some of the presentations and learn a little bit more about what it means to be a good neighbor. We'll see you there.